The ocean is vast, merciless, and eternal. For centuries, sailors have spoken of ghost ships drifting across the waves, crewed not by men but by silence. The sea is a graveyard, and in its depths lie countless stories swallowed whole by the tide. Some of these tales are born from fear, others from superstition. Whispers of vessels seen gliding across the horizon with no hand at the helm, sails billowing as though driven by unseen spirits. To sailors, these were omens, warnings that the sea demands a price for every journey. And among all of these legends, one stands above the rest, a ship that was found adrift intact, its cargo untouched, its provisions in order, yet its crew vanished without a trace, not a drop of blood, not a cry for help, not a body to bury. This is the story of the Mary Celeste, a mystery that has haunted the seas for more than 150 years. A ship of promise. The Mary Celeste was no ordinary vessel. Built in 1861 in Nova Scotia, she was a sturdy brigantine, designed for long voyages across the Atlantic. Though she endured several accidents in her early career, she remained seaworthy and was eventually refitted for trade. To her owners, she was not just a ship, but an investment in the growing web of commerce that connected continents. By 1872, the ship was captained by Benjamin Briggs, a deeply religious and experienced seaman. At 37 years old, Briggs was respected for his discipline and integrity, valued fairness, and carried with him a quiet sense of morality that inspired loyalty. He was joined by his wife Sarah, devoted, educated, and brave enough to face the uncertainty of the open sea, and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, whose laughter would echo across the deck during calmer days. For the Briggs family, the voyage was a balance between duty and dream, business, but also the chance to travel together across the mighty Atlantic. Alongside them were 7 crewmen, carefully chosen for their skill and reliability. Each was seasoned, familiar with hardship, and willing to follow Briggs into the unknown. Together they formed not just a crew, but a floating community. Their mission was straightforward: sail from New York to Genoa, Italy, carrying a cargo of industrial alcohol. The journey was expected to take little more than a month. For Briggs, it was another chapter in a career defined by the sea. For his family, it was an adventure, an opportunity to see the world beyond American shores. But destiny had other plans: departure and discovery. On November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from Staten Island. The ship was heavy with her cargo, over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol carefully stowed in the hold. The air was crisp, the sea calm, and her sails stretched wide under a bright autumn sky. Dock workers watched her leave, unaware that they were witnessing the last moments anyone would ever see her crew alive. Witnesses described the captain as confident, his wife Sarah calm, and little Sophia clutching her mother's hand, gazing out over the endless water with innocent wonder. The sailors moved about their duties with quiet efficiency, setting lines, checking the rigging, preparing for what they expected to be a routine Atlantic crossing. For 3 weeks, the Mary Celeste sailed silently, following the ancient rhythms of wind and current. Nothing about her voyage seemed unusual, but then fate intervened. On December 4th, the stillness of the ocean was broken. The British brigantine Dei Gratia, commanded by Captain David Morehouse, spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly about 400 miles east of the Azores. At first it appeared deserted, her sails flapping awkwardly, her course erratic. The crew of the Dei Gratia drew closer, suspicion mounting. Was it a derelict? Had it been struck by disease, or worse, piracy? As they prepared to board, they realized with growing unease that the ship was none other than the Mary Celeste. She was not sunk, not burned, not broken, but she was silent. And soon they would discover why the story of this vessel would live forever in maritime legend. The discovery. When the Dei Gratia's crew boarded the drifting ship, they stepped into silence. The sound of waves slapping against the hull echoed like whispers in an empty cathedral. The deck was damp, but not waterlogged. A few sails were torn, ropes loose, but there was no sign of catastrophe. The wheel turned freely, as though waiting for a hand that would never return. Below deck, the scene grew stranger. The galley was stocked with food, meat, flour, and even coffee beans, untouched. The crew's belongings were still in their chests, clothing neatly folded, pipes and tobacco waiting to be smoked, even jewelry left behind. No sailor would abandon such things willingly. The captain's logbook lay on his desk, its entries calm and methodical. The final note, written 10 days earlier, mentioned nothing unusual, no storms, no sickness, no rebellion, just routine. Only two things were missing: the lifeboat and every human soul. The Mary Celeste was seaworthy. She carried months of provisions, yet her people had stepped off her decks into oblivion. No bloodstains, no signs of violence, no farewell note, just absence, heavy and unexplainable, pressing against every corner of the ship. It was as if the sea had claimed the crew in an instant, leaving behind only the shell of their world. Theories. The mystery of the Mary Celeste invited countless theories, each more haunting than the last. Piracy seemed plausible at first, until investigators saw the untouched cargo and personal belongings. No pirate would steal only people and leave the treasure behind. Mutiny was another possibility. Could the crew have turned on Captain Briggs, murdered him and fled? Yet there was no blood, no struggle, no evidence of violence. Briggs had chosen his sailors carefully. They were loyal, disciplined men with no reason to revolt. Then came natural disasters. Some suggested a waterspout, a tornado of the sea, struck suddenly, drenching the decks and terrifying the crew into abandoning ship. Others argued for a sudden earthquake beneath the Atlantic, shaking the vessel violently, but the ship's structure bore no scars of such an event. The most enduring theory involves the cargo itself. Industrial alcohol is highly volatile. If barrels leaked, fumes could have filled the hold. One spark from a lantern might have ignited an explosion. Captain Briggs, fearing fire, may have ordered everyone into the lifeboat temporarily, intending to return. If the tow line snapped, they would be lost forever, watching helplessly as the Mary Celeste drifted away. And then there are the supernatural whispers. Some claimed sea monsters dragged the crew to the depths. Others believed the ship passed through a cursed region of ocean where men vanish but wood and sail remain. No matter the theory, none could explain everything. Each left gaps, each carried doubt, and that doubt is what has kept the ghost of the Mary Celeste alive for more than a century. Aftermath. The discovery of the Mary Celeste shocked the maritime world. When Captain Morehouse of the Dei Gratia brought the abandoned vessel into Gibraltar, rumors spread faster than the wind itself. Investigators swarmed the ship, examining every detail. They found the hull seaworthy, the cargo mostly intact, though 9 barrels of alcohol were mysteriously empty. Some claimed this supported the theory of leaking fumes. Others believed the barrels were never filled properly in New York. The Gibraltar Court of Inquiry struggled for answers. They examined the logbook, the lifeboat davits, the waterlogged pumps, and every mark on the deck, but every clue only deepened the puzzle. Was it foul play, insurance fraud, panic born from unseen danger? The court concluded nothing. The case was left open, the questions unanswered. Meanwhile, newspapers across Europe and America turned the story into legend. Some journalists painted Captain Briggs as a madman, suggesting he murdered his crew and vanished into the sea. Others spun tales of sea monsters, phantom ships, and curses. But those who knew Benjamin Briggs remembered a man of honor, incapable of madness or betrayal. His widow back home refused to believe the wild stories. To her, the silence of the Mary Celeste was not scandal, it was loss. Legacy. The Mary Celeste sailed again after her discovery, but her reputation followed her like a shadow. Sailors whispered she was cursed, and some refused to serve aboard her. Voyages continued, but accidents and misfortunes seemed to plague the vessel. In 1885, just 13 years after her ghostly fame began, the ship's owners deliberately ran her aground near Haiti in a failed insurance fraud scheme. She splintered against the reef, condemned not by storm or battle, but by greed. The sea that once spared her finally claimed her timbers, yet the legend of the Mary Celeste only grew stronger. Writers and novelists seized the tale. Arthur Conan Doyle, long before creating Sherlock Holmes, published a fictionalized account of the ghost ship, transforming fact into eerie myth. His story added supernatural flavor, ensuring the name Mary Celeste would forever be associated with dread. Today, the ship stands as the most famous maritime mystery in history. Unlike myths of phantom ships seen only in dreams, the Mary Celeste was real, built, sailed, crewed, and lost. She is remembered not for what she carried, but for what she left behind: emptiness, an intact ship, a missing crew, and questions that the ocean has refused to answer for more than a century. Conclusion: the sea is vast. It swallows men, ships, and nations. Most wrecks leave behind evidence: broken masts, shattered hulls, bones buried in sand. But the Mary Celeste left behind something far more haunting: silence. Why would an experienced captain abandon a perfectly sound ship? What terror could force a mother to carry her child into a fragile lifeboat, leaving behind safety and supplies? Why did the ocean take the people, yet leave the vessel behind as a hollow monument to their absence? Perhaps it was nothing more than chance, a chain of small mistakes magnified into tragedy, a snapped rope, a shift in the wind, a boat lost to the waves. Or perhaps it was something darker, an invisible hand of fate, or the eternal hunger of the sea, claiming not just lives but stories. For more than 150 years, the Mary Celeste has drifted in our imagination as the ultimate ghost ship. Not haunted by spirits, but by questions. She reminds us that the ocean holds secrets deeper than any trench, mysteries that may never be solved. If this story has left you unsettled, you are not alone. These are the tales we explore here on Obscura 5. Subscribe and join me on the next journey into history's darkest waters, where truth and legend meet and the unknown waits.